This is Sportscentre.
Hey, I'm Marissa Roberta on the Digital Sportscentre presented by Montana's Barbecue and Bar. Last night, the Stanley Cup Final opened with a bang. We got an overtime thriller that ultimately ended in an Oiler win, thanks to a little magic from McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play. The win gives something Edmonton they never had in last year's series final, a series lead. And the fact that they're up 1-0 right now is huge. In their franchise history, they've never lost the Cup Final after taking the first game. And if you consider what we learned about Edmonton in Game 1, it feels like there's a decent chance they will keep the streak going. For one, the Oilers proved they have a different offensive identity this year, as evidenced by their 46 shots in Game 1, which is far more than their average from last year's final. And their more aggressive offense got the job done, putting up 4 goals. Last year they had just 4 goals in the first 3 games combined, and the big reason for this bump on offense is a healthy Leon Draisaitl. Last year, Draisaitl was reportedly battling hand and rib injuries for the majority of the playoffs, and hardly looked like himself in the Cup Final. He actually failed to score a single goal in that series, but with 2 in Game 1, Leon is proving how big of an X factor he can be when healthy. Sure, it's only 1 game, but the Oilers have shown us a lot about what kind of team they are. And if they can continue to have performances like yesterday's, you gotta like their chances of winning it all. And so do the odds makers. Our friends at FanDuel now have them as a -225 favorite to win the Cup. Cause like I've been saying, it's Edmonton. It's been Edmonton. After almost a week with no playoff basketball, we are back tonight. Game 1 of the NBA Finals finally getting underway in OKC. And after a 68-win regular season and a relatively smooth run to the finals, it's no surprise that Thunder are heavy favorites to win the series. The Pacers are plus 500 underdogs on FanDuel. So the odds makers don't think it's likely they win the series, but...
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
We had to get that in here, you know? With more on the Pacers, let's head now to OKC, where show producer Christopher Hein and Jevohn Shepherd are on site.
Thanks, Risser. Jevohn, we're just a few hours away from tip-off of Game 1. All we've heard is OKC is just going to win the series in a cakewalk. Paint the picture in which Indy can win the series, or at least make it competitive.
Well, think about this for a second, right? There's 28 other teams that are sitting at home. And if I had said to you at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the season, that the Indiana Pacers were going to be in the NBA Finals, you would have called me a liar, right? So, yes, there is a chance, but there's a long shot at making this thing competitive, right? I think for Indiana, and just talking to Andrew Nemhard yesterday, he illustrated it perfectly, right? He said, we've never been concerned with outside, sources, what the media is saying or the expectations or lack thereof. We think inward and inside this locker room. And that type of chip on their shoulder, I think, has permeated to the court for them all season. And then I think, secondly, all the pressure is on OKC, right? They're the favorites in this thing. And for Indiana coming out, you got to look at the 4 losses that OKC has in this playoffs. What didn't they do well? And they didn't shoot the basketball well from the three-point line. So you got to take away that three-point shot for them, because a number of those guys are skilled, they're talented, they can create shots for one another, and then they can knock them down. Taking away that 3-ball, because Shea's an MVP. You're only going to be able to contain him. Indiana has to make sure to keep this thing up and down, a running game, take away that 3-ball, and not allow themselves to play in the half court against OKC's half court defense. But it boils down to a mentality, a chippiness, and a grittiness from them, and coming out of Oklahoma with 1 victory at the very least.
Couldn't agree with you more about that stuff in the half court. Like, Indy's really going to need to push the pace. But now, if Indy does make this a competitive series, let's finish with a fill in the blank. The most important player is?
Pascal Siakam.
Love it. I love it.
Pascal Siakam. Has to be Pascal, because he's the one player on the floor for Indiana that's going to have a mismatch, whether OKC goes small or whether OKC goes big. And the biggest factor in it all, he's the one player that's going to be on the floor in the series that has won a championship and played a big role. So experience comes into play here, and that's going to be a big factor, but it's got to be Pascal Siakam.
You nailed it with played a big role. People forget that Game 1 where he was the reason they won Game 1 in that 2019 Finals, and huge in Game 6 too.
Spicy P.
Yeah, let's throw it back to you, Risser. Thanks.
Spicy P, man. Spicy P. We miss him. We're so happy for him. Catch Game 1 tonight on TSN. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Now, joined by our gambling guy, Wes Cheng. Great to see you, Wes.
Great to see you, Marissa.
Okay, Wes, we've been building to this all year. The NBA Finals are finally here. So who is winning the series and in how many games?
I got OKC to win in 5. Not exactly bold, but I just think the Thunder are in a completely different class than the Pacers. If you look at all the strengths that Indiana showed out against New York, OKC does all of those things better. They're number 1 in fast break point prevention. That was regular season and postseason. They have the MVP of the league, and if you rank their starting lineup 1 through 5, OKC has the better player at every single spot. So this is just simply a scenario of a team being outmatched versus the other. You look at the past 25 NBA Finals we've had this century, 11 of them finished in 5 games or less. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect OKC in 5.
I was expecting that from you. Now, looking ahead to tonight, what's your best bet?
I'll give you a bolder one. I like Tyrese Halliburton to go under 8.5 dimes, which is right around even money on FanDuel. To his credit, he's at 9.8 in the postseason, 9.2 during the regular season, but this is an OKC defense that has been number 1 by a mile in the league, and their track record over the playoffs supports this. Ant-Man, he had 5.9 dimes a game. He only puts up 4.6 versus OKC. Jokic put up 10.1 in the first round, only 5.9 in the second round. Ja Morant averaged 5 dimes in his series. He averaged 7.2 during the regular season. But the stat that really jumps off the page for me, Halliburton had 63 dimes against New York. 28 of those came in transition. That is disproportionately high when you look at the league average. 13.5% of points are scored on the fast break. The faucet is going to be absolutely turned off here against OKC, and I think is a great spot to catch him on the under.
Wes Cheng, always a pleasure. Enjoy Game 1.
Thanks for having me.
We are just 48 hours away from the Canadian Shield at BMO Field. That rhymes. Where the Canadian men's national team will face off against Ukraine. And to tee up the match, let's bring back our guy, Canada soccer reporter Matthew Shinetti.
What's going on, Marissa?
Shooter, Canada has played Ukraine just once before 15 years ago. And they'll face the Ivory Coast for the first time ever on Tuesday. How does Canada benefit from matches like these against unfamiliar opponents?
Okay, this is going to require me to unpack the World Cup draw just a little bit because Canada's going to be at pot 1 later this fall when the World Cup draw happens. But pot 2, 3, and 4 could be occupied by teams that are very much like the Ivory Coast and Ukraine, who they're going to face over the next few days. Ukraine is ranked 25th, so really a pot 2 team. Ivory Coast is ranked 41st, really a pot 3 team, although they both haven't qualified for the World Cup yet. New Zealand has, even though Canada won't face New Zealand. They're 86th in the world, so when you look at these 3 teams, and Canada's playing 2 of them, the toughest 2 of the 3 in Ukraine and Ivory Coast, these are the kind of teams that Canada will face during the World Cup next summer.
So obviously the results of these games don't really matter, but meaningful soccer is right on the horizon for Canada. So how important are these friendlies with the Gold Cup starting in under 2 weeks?
Yeah, to answer this question, I'm going to go back to last summer because I really do believe facing the Dutch in Rotterdam and then the French in Bordeaux, especially that 0-0 draw against France, really set Canada up well for that semifinal run in Copa America. Jesse Marsch loves having a ton of time with his players. He had over a month last summer. He's getting around a month this summer, and really this is going to be not a brand new squad, but a squad he's going to want to rotate. And being able to have preparation like facing Ukraine and facing the Ivory Coast is the perfect setup for the Gold Cup run they're going to want to go on. And this Gold Cup run isn't going to be nearly as difficult on paper as the Copa America run was, because in the group stage, Canada will face El Salvador and Honduras and Curacao, and Jesse Marsch has made it pretty clear he wants his team to win the Gold Cup, a major test, major dress rehearsal before next summer.
Matthew, informative as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, buddy.
For tickets to the Canadian Shield, head to Ticketmaster, or if you're watching us on Instagram, just click the link below. The 2025 RBC Canadian Open is in full swing. And our own Raegan Subban joins us from TPC Toronto in Caledon. She's soaking in everything this Canadian Open has to offer. Welcome back, Raegan. First of all, you got to give me the vibe. What's it like at this year's Canadian Open so far?
Hey Marissa, I'm also here with Jevohn, and you know what? The vibes could not be higher. Despite the weather, it is gray, cloudy, and raining right now, but there are so many people here to watch their favorite players. We had the best start to the day. We already hit up the merchandise tent to get some matching hats, and yeah, overall, great start and really excited for day 2 at the tournament.
In terms of biggest attraction, there's a lot that you can choose from. I'd say that the 72-foot putt recreation zone, where fans can try to recreate Nick Taylor's 72-foot putt, that's a really popular area, along with the autograph sessions that you do with players. You can see them practice. But the number one area is always going to be the rink. And this year, the rink is really cool. It's huge. There's the boards behind us here with the Zamboni, but then there's a bigger set of boards where all these people are up and around. It's loud as heck here. And also, it's the easiest rink hole ever, according to the golfers. And so who knows, maybe we'll get a chance to see a hole-in-one.
Sounds like a good time, and obviously it's early, but have any groups in particular caught your eye today?
Well, I think the Canadian fans are definitely interested in the Canadian golfers, and luckily for them, there's a Canadian group of golfers, and they all shot really well today. That's Nick Taylor, Taylor Pendrith, and Mackenzie Hughes. Mackenzie Hughes had an electric eagle that had the Canadian fans just like absolutely popping off. It was probably the shot of the day, and so I'd say that for Canadians, that's probably the group to watch.
Absolutely, but you also can't forget about the two-time Canadian Open champ, Rory McIlroy, as well. He might be lethal to watch in this tournament, too.
Raegan, Subban, always a pleasure. You can catch full coverage of the RBC Canadian Open right here on TSN throughout the weekend.
Breaking news out of Pittsburgh, where according to Tom Pelissero, Aaron Rodgers has reportedly agreed to a one-year deal to join the Steelers. We could see him in Pittsburgh just a week from now as mandatory minicamp kicks off. And Rodgers will likely make his Steelers debut in Week 1 against, you guessed it, the New York Jets.
Time now for the Big Play Replay presented by Montana's Barbecue and Bar. And with the Stanley Cup Final kicking off with an OT thriller last night, this one was kind of a no-brainer.
Here's McDavid, out in front, score! Leon Draisaitl! The Oilers win Game 1!
McDavid to Draisaitl, these guys never cease to amaze. And how about this for a clutch stat? The Oilers are 4-0 in overtime this postseason. Draisaitl has 3 goals and 1 assist in those overtimes. And his 3 OT winners tied the NHL record for most in a single playoff. Just absolutely electric work. These guys are firing on every cylinder. That's it for me today. We'll see you back tomorrow. No Pacific. Have a good one.